When you're doing a trademark, you think you're going to, would you do that before or after if you decide to file an LLC or a corporation?
Excellent question. It depends. In general, if somebody's
That's
just
the lawyerly response, it depends.
it's not always black or white.
Yeah.
There are times I'll tell somebody, hold on, let's get the LLC first. And there are other times I'll tell people, let's get the trademark filed and then we'll get the LLC later on.
Okay.
So I'll expand on that. So let's say you're starting out. You need the trademark, but you also need the LLC. I will tell people, let's get the LLC formed first. Mm-hmm. Create the company that's going to own the asset. The trademark is an asset of the company. So let's form the company first. Let's build the foundation and put the framing of the house first.
That makes sense.
The trademark is the drywall or the electricity or the plumbing. So get the house first and then start moving in the assets of the house.
Okay.
So then you make the LLC the owner of the trademark.
Okay.
But the LLC needs to be birthed first.
Yeah.
It needs to exist first.
Yeah.
Now, there are times where people, for various personal reasons, need a little time until they form their LLC. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a foreign national who needs to get their visa squared away or get their SSN squared away. I've dealt with that a few times. Or maybe just for whatever personal business purposes, I'm not planning on forming this LLC for a few months. And then I'll tell them, okay, well, let's go ahead and file your trademark. I have this pending with a client right now. She's a foreigner. She's got some visa issues, so she can't form her LLC yet because she doesn't have an SSN. No problem. Well, the trademark process takes about a year. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and get you filed as an individual owner, get you in the queue, get the process rolling because it's going to take 10 months until a human being at the PTO even looks at your application. So let's not wait. Let's file now. Then during the process, we can always assign the trademark the application from you individually to your LLC after your LLC exists.
We've talked about trademarks. We've brought in talking a little bit about LLCs, not quite corporations yet. When should somebody have an LLC or a corporation? And then how do they decide which they should have?
Typically want to do it earlier in your business journey than later. Similarly with trademarks, you want to do it as soon as possible because the main benefit of entity formation is to limit your liability. That's the main benefit you get. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a legal problem, if there's a dispute with a vendor or a customer, your LLC is the party to that dispute, not you personally. So it's a way of protecting your personal assets. If you're in business, you should have the LLC operative. Now, there are times where I tell people, okay, you kind of jumped the gun there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will form the LLC and then life gets in the way, or they're spending all this time setting things up and doing other things where they're not actually in business. They're not doing anything with the company. Now you're paying $800 to the state of California for your annual minimum tax. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I consulted with somebody a few months ago where due to life happening and challenges happening with their lives, and we're human, they're not actually in business. Mm-hmm. But this LLC has been around for a couple of years. You're kind of lighting money on fire at that point. Mm-hmm. So if you're in business, you're promoting your services, the shingle is out, then you should have the LLC up, even if you're not making money yet. Mm-hmm. Because in the beginning, you're going to kind of run in the red. So that's part of your investment into your legal infrastructure. You want to do that at the outset.
So on top of just protection and liability, obviously, and I know you're not a tax preparer or a CPA, but there's obviously tax benefits to having entity formation of some kind, LLC or a corporation. Now, do you advise people on the specifics of that, or do you stick to kind of determining which is going to be better for them for what they're doing?
Yes and no. So I will generally defer to your CPA. I'm not a tax specialist. So if your CPA says go with this entity vehicle, I will defer to that. But generally I steer people towards LLC.
Okay. Why is that?
Because it's more streamlined. You don't have to do annual meetings. The annual maintenance is a little bit less. Your annual statement you file with the Secretary of State is biannual, whereas for a corporation, it's annual. Okay. So there's a little bit less red tape. It's more streamlined. It's a little easier. However, you could still do an LLC entity formation, but you can do the S Corp tax election, even though you're an LLC. So if you form as a single member LLC, the IRS will disregard that entity and tax you as an individual, and you get hit with what's called the self-employment tax. Oh. So you pay higher taxes than you would if you didn't do the S Corp election. So for Probably 90% of the entities I form, I do the S Corp election regardless. When do you want an LLC versus a corporation? I typically reserve corporations for professionals. So if you are a professional licensee, you need a professional corporation. So for me, I'm a law corporation. I'm a professional law corporation. I need a corporation. I can't be an LLC in California. This is state specific, so other states have different rules. I've formed corporations for numerous therapy practices. They need a professional corporation. I did one for a physician assistant, professional corporation. Those are some examples of situations where I would steer people towards corporation.
Okay.
I'm setting one up right now. You and I are working on this one right now, where they want to bring in future investors and they want to give out equity to future investors. So what I'm telling them is, okay, we're going to do a C corporation. We're going to issue a certain number of shares of stock, and only a small portion of those shares of stock will be outstanding. So to the original shareholders, let's say we're going to create 10 million shares. For the initial shareholders, we're going to have you guys own 3 million of it. 7 million of these shares will not be outstanding. We're going to sell them off to people who want to invest later on and buy equity into the company. Okay. That's a situation where a corporation would make sense.
Okay. So it really is very specific to what it is you're trying to accomplish, and they should sit with you and get an idea of which direction is best for them. Absolutely.
So you need a professional where you can strategize and talk about your vision. So if you go to an online service and you want a corporation or an LLC, you'll get it. It's like buying a suit off the rack. And so you need to go put the suit on. The suit's not going to fit you very well.
I'm like analogy. I like that analogy.
I'm your tailor.
Yeah. Okay. Tom the tailor.
Ooh.
You didn't even know I just created a whole new business for you. What are the biggest mistakes that you see people make once they form a corp, any kind of entity?
This is such a small and easy thing. And I want to say it's a petty thing, but it's not. A lot of companies, especially the ones who use the online services, they are unaware that within 90 days of formation, you need to file a piece of paper with the Secretary of State called a Statement of Information. For corporations, it's due annually. For LLCs, it's due biannually. For either one, it's due within 90 days of forming. A lot of these online companies, I won't say their names, but one of them rhymes with doom. They drop the ball and they don't file this piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then people get suspended by the Secretary of State for not filing this piece of paper.
Okay.
For me personally, it takes me about 10 minutes to do. My law clerk does it. But if you don't file this piece of paper on time, the Secretary of State will suspend your corporation, which takes it out of legal existence, puts you in legal limbo. You cannot enforce or enter into contracts. You can't be a party to litigation. You can't sue to enforce your contracts. And in fact, your contracts are voidable if you are suspended. All for a little piece of paper that you paid this company thinking that they're going to do for you, and this company did not do it for you. But then you got to pay a $250 fine, and then you have to do a certificate of reviver to get the state to bring your company back into existence. And in the meantime, while you're suspended, if somebody else wants to come along and grab your name, they can do so.
Oh, interesting. So it sounds like a major pain in the ass.
Huge pain in the
butt. Okay. So you could avoid all this by just investing the time and energy and even finances into an attorney to avoid all of these things, these tiny little fees and things that add up, but also the time away from your business that you're trying to figure out. You're in a business to make money doing what you do, not waste that time. You're not making any money as you're researching all this other stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And people don't know what they don't know. And so why are you going to take the time to learn how to set this thing up? And that's just going to take away your time, energy, and attention from growing your business, which is where you're an expert.
Yeah, I see it very similar to, and I'm really passionate about anything when it comes to in-person versus online, but even, open door versus using a real estate agent. People think they're saving money. They don't realize how much money they're losing. And I bring it back to that because I do have a lot of agents on my social media who I follow and who follow me. And I think that's important for people. I think that's a good comparison for people to kind of get, like, why you wouldn't want to use this online service versus an in-person. You obviously know your value as an agent versus somebody using open door or an online. Oh, I'm probably going to get in trouble for making that statement, huh? Is that like a legal thing? I'm not supposed to compare. You didn't mention the online legal thing. Was I not supposed to mention open door? I'll bleep it.
It's out there. I mean, you can drop a name to engage in trademark infringement when you are doing business within that classification.
Okay.
So we can talk converse about anybody, any other business, as long as we aren't defaming them.
Oh,
we can talk
Was
about
I?
no. But we can talk about businesses and use their registered trademark names in conversation.
Yeah.
The distinction is when you are using that name in commerce in that classification.
Got it. Okay. I mean, I was kind of being silly, but then I was like, wait, I should follow suit with what he's doing. He didn't mention that other online doom place.